right, you guys, welcome back. We're in it, and we are addressing another Assassin's Creed Shadows video. Man, this game is bad. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But don't forget, check out the previous video to this one, especially if you want to see me just dig into a lot of different topic matter. But with that being said, let's just dive into this.
And it's the side-scroller ones. But first, Assassin's Creed Shadows has finished its first full day of release, and the game is now out in the wilds. I've been playing it myself, and I will give you my honest opinion on what I've played so far as someone who has played pretty much every game in the series, well, minus the side-scroller ones. But first, let's look into what this game has achieved in 24 hours and look at it through a critical lens. This is from Fandom Pulse. Shadows has reached just around 41,000 players concurrently on Steam alone. Some people are touting this as a success. However, if we place this against Dragon Age Veilguard in its day one of release, that game managed to hit around 89,000 players within its first 24 hours on Steam. You don't need to be a math whiz to know the difference in these two player numbers. Honestly, I thought Shadows would skyrocket to at least 100,000 people day one on Steam. I was convinced that this would happen, and I was very obviously wrong on that one, and it surprised me. I mean, only 41,000. Really? For Ascreed? How the hell did Veilguard double the player count and then some? A reminder, Veilguard sold about 1.5 million copies once it was all said and done. It was a commercial failure, and then it was dumped on PS Plus, where players actually rejected it as well. People wouldn't even play the game for free, and yeah, I don't blame them. There's no way that Shadows is currently anywhere near a commercial success for Ubisoft if you ask me looking at these numbers and more. Of course, Ubisoft did try to spin the story, as you can see here on Twitter, where they posted this. It's not even 4 p.m. here in Canada, and Assassin's Creed Shadows has already passed 1 million players. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining this adventure in feudal Japan. However, notice how they worded this announcement. 1 million players, not copies sold. If there were 1 million copies sold, they would have said that, but the trick here is that you can play Shadows via their Ubisoft Plus subscription. It's pretty much Game Pass, but Ubisoft games. Anyway, that's definitely a way that people are playing Shadows for less than full price, and of course Ubisoft is taking those players who are playing it via Ubisoft Plus and then considering them as sales, but it's not even close if you consider how much each player actually costs. A lot of the time you'll see game companies swindle these numbers by including things like Game Pass or PS Plus numbers into their overall copy sold narrative. Why would they do that? I hear you not asking. It's simple. Because if the numbers look better, they can then slap it on a PowerPoint presentation during their next investor call and go, see, people are buying our games. Now give us your investment so that we don't go bankrupt. Everything about executives and how they word things is carefully orchestrated to give the best possible results when they speak, despite if things are actually failing. It's like if you ask someone what they had for lunch and they said, I had a baked bread with beautiful...
Who are the investors, though? Are the investors only the government? And so it's actually just proving that the propaganda is getting out to people? Is that what it is? Hey, look, we got out the propaganda to 1 million people. Pat me on the back, USAID money, ESG. I mean, like, what does it really come down to? And let's keep going.
Cheese, thinly sliced Italian meats, and a side of delectable beverages. And then you go, oh, they had pepperoni pizza.
Man, the cutscenes are so bad in this game.
Talking about just eating pizza and drinking a Coca-Cola for lunch.
Man, that looks
fancier
good.
Than me just saying what it is, right? Same thing here. Sure, it crossed 1 million. Which, if you've been watching my content on Shadows for a while now, I explicitly stated multiple times in previous...
Oh, but I do wonder if there's actual investors who have actual money. Good money that isn't from the government. And I think the case is no. I think everyone that's giving them money is from the government.
Previous videos that I believe that Shadows...
Most of the time, that is what it is. There's really no one that actually has legit money outside of the government. Any big company, they're all held up by the government's money. Once you get to a certain size, like Nike, Pepsi, whatever, you know, they're no longer operating on company money. They're operating on government money. And as we know, especially even if it's a loan, it doesn't matter. It's a loan. You know, regardless of whatever happens to be, like the money that they're operating with is not anyone's actual money except for the taxpayer.
Would cross 1 million copies, not players sold in 24 hours, because this is Assassin's Creed after all. And it seems even my low expectations have not been met for this game in both its Steam number counts or its actual copies sold. It's kind of astounding that Shadows is just sort of not reaching the heights of previous games. Of course, that hasn't stopped other websites from already doing exactly what I said they would do when the time comes. Here's PC Gamer claiming that Shadows...
Oh my.
When we're
Shadows has smashed Ubisoft's previous highest player count on Steam, which was Valhalla, within 24 hours. This sounds great, right? Well, it is if you just believe anything that you see on the internet. The reality is that with a quick Google search, you would know that Valhalla released on Steam 2 whole years after it originally debuted on PS5 and Xbox. That game was, at that point, full of expansions and DLC packs and cosmetics like crazy too once it came to Steam. Shadows is the first time an Assassin's Creed game has released on Steam the same day as on Steam 2 whole years after it originally debuted on PS5. A quick Google search, you would know that Valhalla released on Steam 2 whole years after it originally debuted on PS5 and Xbox.
Yeah.
That game was, at that point, full of expansions and DLC packs and cosmetics like crazy too once it came to Steam. Shadows is the first time an Assassin's Creed game has released on Steam the same day as PS5 and Xbox in the franchise's history.
Really?
So naturally, because a new game that is being hyped up despite the quality or controversy that comes out around it, there are going to be those who will still check it out. So of course Shadows is going to break Valhalla's numbers when the majority of people who couldn't wait for Valhalla played it already on PS5 and Xbox when it came out originally in 2020. So you're comparing a 2-year-old product releasing on Steam versus a product that is day one in the same franchise. Look, they tried the same thing with Veilguard. Here's GameIndustry.biz when Veilguard released. Oh, it smashed EA's day one player count for Dragon Age as a franchise. Like, no shit it did, because the previous game in the series, which was Inquisition, as you can see here via Steam database, didn't come to Steam until 6 whole years after it initially released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So just like Shadows with Valhalla, the gaming biz when Veilguard released. Oh, it smashed EA's day one player count for Dragon Age as a franchise. Like, no shit it did, because the previous game in the series, which was Inquisition, as you can see here via Steam database, didn't come to Steam until 6 whole years after it initially released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
That took
so just
forever.
like Shadows with Valhalla, the gaming journalists are trying to use selective wording to prove to you that this is actually a success, which in Veilguard's case, we know that it wasn't. The point here is that what they're trying to push as a narrative is just not going to work on most people, because they're more informed than ever before. Of course, you'll have the usual websites or the shill Twitter accounts trying to claim that Shadows is actually a success. But the reality is that, like them claiming that it has the biggest Steam release while ignoring history like these types usually do, they'll say that it sold 1 million copies when Ubisoft has clearly stated that players are 1 million, not the copies sold. Again, it's all selective wording, and you need to question everything that you see online, because had I not just showed you the evidence, that I can't make up, by the way, go Google it yourself if you think that I'm lying, you would know that I'm just telling you the truth here. They are lying about the success of their video games because they want their slop to succeed when it isn't. Don't believe me still? Here's more. When a game does well, would your stock as a company go up or down based on the performance of your new game day one? You would say up, right? Well, in Ubisoft's case, once Shadows released within 24 hours, their stock went down 7%. Which is already not good, but this is what I'm saying. You need to look at the cold, hard facts here and not just think or believe with your emotions instead. But I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, because when I was playing this game that's supposedly a success that has incredible characters like Yaya, the big sumo wrestler lady who would not be a sumo wrestler during this time period at all, and she also sticks out like a sore thumb while you're playing Shadow. She's a well over 6 foot tall, wide-back Japanese woman who's also living during a time of famine and war, yet looks like she somehow is able to manage over 3,000 calories a day in her eating habits. I failed to explain here, so let me just go and get my magic orb. Let me ponder for a second here. Let's see what the magic orb has got to say about Yaya. How would you describe Yaya? Oh, magic orb.
That's a huge bitch!
Thank you, magic orb. Very cool. Look, this game, from what I've played so far, let's get into it. Quick backstory. I've platinumed 100%ed Syndicate, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and Mirage, and I've beaten all the other mainline games and even some of the spin-offs like Liberation. So I know this series well. I played Assassin's Creed 1 the day it came out and played it all weekend, and I was obsessed with it, so I know how these games work. I know all the lore of it. Shadows, after having played it for about 8 hours in its first day, I can confidently say that it is absolutely mid in almost every single way so far. From the get-go, you play as Yasuke. Thank God I can turn the blood off so I don't need to gray out my clips anymore, so here you can see I'm Yasuke just massacring Japanese men. Eventually, you play as Naoe, her dad, who was a real ninja of the time. He was one of the big three, actually.
Would you actually need to do that? No, you wouldn't. Gore is a part of the game.
Tasks her with finding a box in this tomb that can only be opened with a hidden blade. So Naoe gets there, opens the door, and then she immediately gets crept on by a big samurai guy in a suit of armor that she, of course, conveniently doesn't hear coming, and then the first realistic thing in this game finally happens, which is that Naoe gets knocked out cold by a single hit by this male samurai. This is the only believable moment so far.
I've heard other people say that.
Entire game, by the way. So Naoe gets rocked, the box gets stolen. What's in the box? No idea.
Like everyone says, the most realistic thing happens, which is she gets knocked out cold by a man, which is, yes.
I would guess it's probably a piece of Eden. But anyway, Naoe is then saved by her dad because she couldn't hear a fully grown man in clanking armor behind her in the dead of night, despite being a shinobi, apparently. She then feels like she failed her dad, which she did, and wants to make things right, so she then scurries into the night and finds the samurai guy who stole the box from her at a camp. Here is where the game lets you sort of play around for the first time and get familiar with the mechanics. It doesn't take long to get into the groove of things. I mean, it's Assassin's Creed, it's all pretty standard stuff. Climb around, stalk people, although now you can go prone, which is a welcome addition that it's finally in these games. Although, I will admit, the jump does feel very inconsistent, and Naoe routinely doesn't want to jump the way that you want her to jump. For an example, here's me infiltrating Osaka Castle as I keep pressing the prompt for Naoe to climb this wooden block, and she just kind of refuses to grab onto that small part that is left that is clearly designed here for her to grab it. I try a few more times when this is clearly what the risen plank of wood is here for, and now wait.
The directional cue is incorrect. It's auto running towards the platform in front of you rather than above, which I don't know how that problem happens because it's auto climbing. So my guess is either the detection of the platform above you, maybe the object is glitched and so it's not sensing a platform above, or the most likely outcome is that it has a preference for climbing forward. Well, air quotes on climbing, but right, you're traversing forward instead of upward. I mean, that's just how lazy do you have to be to make a screw up like that? Seriously, I mean, these developers, it's like, guys, the previous games, I don't remember them having that kind of well, it was a little bit awkward at times, but for the most part, the previous games, I mean, you can just tell that the people that they're hiring nowadays are just not as good as who they used to hire. And the talent and the work ethic in the pool that's now available today, and also the people that they're just not willing to cancel out of the industry as well. You got to make sure that your politics are in line with the company. It's clear that the people that we have now today are just not, they don't have what it takes. It's really just that simple.
Just won't grab it. So I have to abandon this and find another way to get around to higher ground. Here's another moment where I'm on a pirate ship that is outside of Sakai, and yet again I'm clicking the jump button while facing the way I want to jump, and the game keeps making Naoe either avoid where I want to go and then makes her jump instead to her death, which definitely made me just groan out loud and then close my eyes in frustration. This happens every now and then, and yes,
that has happened though in the past. For sure. Let me see that though.
Onto that small part that is left that is clearly designed here for her to grab it. I try a few more times when this is clearly what the risen plank of wood is here for, and Naoe just won't grab it. So I have to abandon this and find another way to get around to higher ground. Here's another moment where I'm on a pirate ship that is outside of Sakai, and yet again I'm clicking the jump button while facing the way I want to jump, and the game keeps making Naoe either avoid where I want to go and then makes her jump instead to her death, which definitely made me just groan out loud and then close my eyes.
I think that happened in Assassin's Creed 3 for me. Maybe. I think it did.
Frustration. This happens every now and then, and yes, it's just as annoying the 10th time as it is the first. You would think for a series with this many games in it, they'd have mastered the parkour elements, but sadly, I still think that Unity has the best parkour system in this series by far. Anyways, where was I? Alright, Naoe gets the box and escapes.
It's so sad because it really does just feel like the previous games were just better, you know? Unity was better, Black Flag was better. Oh man, it's just so
the stronghold, and then she's quickly shot by someone off screen.
It's so sad.
And then magically, out of nowhere,
the games have gotten so bad.
Individuals who are obviously supposed to be this game's version of like the Order of the Ancients from
Origins,
they just kind of show up
is so cringe. Her crying is cringe. These people walking up, men and women, samurai, all of them walking up and acting like they're all big tough guys, including the women. Super cringe. The flashbacks that she's having and the new resolution, I'm gonna show you bigots. Oh man. Oh, this is so bad.
And then magically, out of nowhere, an entire group of masked individuals who are obviously supposed to be this game's version of like the Order of the Ancients from Origins, they just kind of show up all of a sudden. Why were these important people all just hanging out in the woods on the off chance that Naoe would appear and steal this box? Because the story needs to happen. Yeah, yes. It's ridiculous, I know. Anyways, Naoe's dad shows up to protect her, and then we have this moment where her dad runs in slow motion towards this massive...
Yes, he has an awesome Chad moment, which is run in slow-mo towards an entire group of warriors. They're going to slaughter you in 2 seconds. Gosh, it's so laughable, man. God, this game is so cringe.
Well, clearly armed individuals who have things like guns and bows and more.
Yes.
And they just cut down Naoe's dad, and oh no, how could they do this? It isn't a spoiler, by the way. This was in the trailer, so relax. So yeah,
it's
Fujibayashi
so
Nagato is dead, killed by the evil...
Seriously, he splits the arrow by the. Oh gosh, it's so bad. They did not build up the characters for them to even get away with. You know, if you were good at telling a story, you could get away with something like this. You could get away with it, okay? You could. The way that they build up all the characters, though, this game is so much more parody than it is anything else. So it just makes this scene retarded. It's retarded on top of comedy, on top of tragedy.
Japanese group of sinister individuals who enjoy cosplaying and waiting in the woods, I guess. I tried to look up how Nagato dies in real life. He's a real person, by the way, and couldn't really find anything, but for one of the 3 Master Iga ninjas in real life, it's kind of ridiculous that he decided to just rush these people instead of, I don't know, using a smoke bomb or something, because he's a literal Master Ninja. Like, hello? But
so
I guess
he was supposed to be a Master Ninja, a Master Assassin, and he literally just charges them. Come on, man. You know, again, a story can only be as intelligent as its writer, and the writers nowadays, they're so stupid.
the game needs to happen.
They're just not even trying.
And so, this guy is now dead. They leave Now Way for dead as well, which is stupid because it's giving me Last of Us Part 2 vibes all over again. They should have just iced her, but the game needs to happen. Then you're saved by a little monk and a little boy. These two made me raise an eyebrow, because
that little boy, I swear to God, it's a freaking girl.
one, there was a lady who consulted on this game who openly admitted that she specializes and wrote a book about how old Japanese men monks would keep young boys as companions to help them with their tasks, and they would also keep these little boys, how do I say this, for sexual reasons too. This is real, by the way.
Oh dear.
So anyway, when I saw these two who distinctly matched that power dynamic in-game, I kind of just went, oh, hell no, bro. Is this old guy findangling this young boy in the woods here? I kind of just wanted to take Sanjiro, that's the kid's name, to the side and be like,
how do these people get jobs? Oh, jeez Louise, man. You say the N-word and they're like, you need to get canceled. But then you have these freaking retards. Oh, gosh. These companies. Gee, I wonder why these companies are so dead. I wonder, it's not like it has anything to do with the freaking clowns that they're hiring. It has nothing to do with that.
Like, is this old monk guy, is he trying to, like, abuse you or anything? Do I need to shank this old guy in the throat with my hidden blade? Because I'll do it. I'll throw this old guy off a mountain like Heihachi does with his kids if I got it, but alas, there was no option to do so. But it is very weird that they pair these two of all people up, considering how public Ubisoft has been about hiring that Dr. Hori lady who specializes in young boys and old monk relationships. I feel gross just bringing it up, but the point still stands, guys. Anyway.
Male love in medieval Japanese Buddhist narratives. Oh, man.
Anyway, Naoe gets better. She leaves the young boy alone with the old man, which definitely just made me cringe when that happened. Like, bro, save that kid. What are we doing? I thought we were protectors of the innocent, but...
Andrew Garfield, by the way. He's one of the chosen.
Nah, blah, blah, blah. Eventually you find your hideout. Thankfully, that kid and the monk then show up and join you, which at least hopefully now other people can watch that old man and make sure that he doesn't try to, Anyway, then you're kind of just left to go into the open world. And so far, the open world is fine. I personally prefer Odyssey and Origins open world to this a lot more. While there are parts of Japan that I've explored...
Odyssey was pretty good. Really good environments. Origins did a pretty good job. I wasn't really a fan of Valhalla, but I mean, yeah, I don't think that they love what they're making anymore, and I think Ubisoft now is just a complete ideologically possessed company.
So far that are pretty on the eyes. When this game is dark, it is dark. I mean, you're seeing the footage here, but when I'm playing it and the game goes into nighttime, dude, I gotta close my windows because I can't see nothing due to how dark this game is. And it also has this weird thing where a lot of the slopes and such and the parts that you think are climbable in this game are actually not. And it's really frustrating because it feels like Shadows is just constantly trying to funnel you into just walking on the pathways that they have in front of you and not really allowing you to find your own way around, if that makes sense. If you played Valhalla, you know what I mean. In Valhalla, you can climb anything, like literally anything. In Shadows, it's far more restrictive, even for Naoe. Yasuke, okay, that makes sense. He's not even an assassin. But with Naoe, you would think, oh, I can climb.
No, it's an Assassin's Creed game. Why should you be restricted because, character's not supposed to be assassin? What are we doing here?
Climb that, I can climb this. No, you really can't climb what you think you can climb. The game is just constantly funneling you to these roads. And in a game called Assassin's Creed,
they removed Yasuke content from this game, so I wonder how many missions with Yasuke they removed because there's too much emphasis on the political nature of what they're trying to push through Yasuke, using him as a Trojan horse for these politics. I wonder how much of that got removed. I mean, the fact that you play Naue for like the first 3, 4, 5 hours of the game, originally you were supposed to be playing both characters about equally. That was closer towards the truth. Then they started delaying the game, and I'm pretty sure that they removed a bunch of Yasuke missions from the prologue. And maybe they kept in the ones past the prologue, and maybe they did that because they didn't want. But then, that's interesting. Then that's a bunch of cut content. Yeah. And then that jangles up the story a whole lot. Unless they just moved the... I don't think... They did cut Yasuke content. I just wonder how much. I mean, clearly, it was supposed to be both Naue and Yasuke during the beginning of the game. And for like the first 5 or whatever hours, or 10, you're only playing as Naue.
I want to climb things, and they're just not letting me climb things the way that I want to. You would understand if you played it, but take my word for it, this game is frustratingly not willing to let you be an assassin the way you want to, at least in its opening hours. Maybe when you get later on in the game, it opens up more and that kind of goes away, but for now, it's definitely a problem. Anyway, the combat, as Naue, that also just feels bland, I guess. There's really no other way to put it. It's just too simple. You just use R1 to attack, R2 to do like a heavier posture break attack. Besides this, L1 is to block, O is to dodge, and then you hold down R2 and you can use one of your face buttons to do another attack. And beyond that, that's pretty much it. There's no real variations here. No way so far anyway that I can see that this combat gets more complex or rewarding. I know the inevitable comparison will be here to Ghost of Tsushima, and rightfully so, and having also 100% in Tsushima back in the day, I can confidently say that it just clears Shadow in every conceivable way. Tsushima has better characters, its world feels more alive and interesting. The combat had different stances that felt far more interesting too, and Shadow's just feels bland.
The sequel's gonna be woke AF.
It just, in general, is the far superior game to Shadows, despite Tsushima being like 5 years old at this point. It also looks better than Shadows too, but then again, I shouldn't be that surprised because Tsushima also asked the important question, which is, what if Assassin's Creed was good? And that's the biggest frustration I've had so far with Shadows, is that everything I've played is just mid, or fine at best. Nothing has shout out to me. Nothing feels like it's somehow propelling the franchise forward.
The company
in
has
any meaningful way.
stagnated.
I guess the going prone thing is
It's
new, but like, if
insane.
that's what I gotta praise amidst a whole ass new game, we got a problem, fellas. It just feels like the most 6 out of 10 game I've played all year. The stealth is passable. I mean, I will say the most involved I felt playing Shadows has been the parts where I just find a castle and decide to rob it of all its loot pretty much, but the amount of people within these strongholds is genuinely insane. Like, it took me 30 minutes to clean out a socket castle with both treasures and people, and I must have killed like 40 people. I'm not even kidding.
If this game was right wing, the left would be tearing this apart. It's insane. Like, just look at how Biden during his presidency, he and Kamala, they were barely. I mean, I would just say they were never criticized by the media. Maybe here and there when it was really silly what we saw out of those two, but overwhelmingly, yeah, you just never heard a thing from the media. The media would only hate on Trump and whatnot, you know, wherever they could. But yeah, now, if Trump just walks a certain way, and I've seen this, people freak out and they're like, Trump, you know, tapping his hip 3 times is a predecessor of an old man. He's about to die. Trump's about to die. He's about to fall over any day now. He's just going to fall diseased. It's like anything that Trump does, literally anything he does, people are just ragging on him and trashing on him super hard. And I'm just like, we barely heard people hate the living daylights out of Kamala and Biden. And it's just amazing because it's like, it just shows to you. I mean, we've kind of always known this, but it's like you just see that clear as day. You know, you go from one presidency to the next, and it's just on the flip of a dime. It's like, okay, this is propaganda. And it's amazing because there's so many people worshiping this game, even though it's trash. And you know that if this game was far right, oh man, CNN would be talking about this game.
And by the time I left that castle behind, everyone was dead, and I mean pretty much everyone, servants included, and yet you wouldn't know that a massive slaughter just happened there, because the world doesn't really react in any meaningful way to you killing either soldiers or peasants. You just sort of kill them, and that's it. The game, as far as I can tell, doesn't even have that mercenary system from, say, Odyssey, where people hunt you at least if you know do bad things or whatnot. I don't know, maybe that unlocks later on. It's not there yet for me, but so far there's no real crime system or anything like that. And I remember reading reviews saying you can just lay down on a roof and enemies will forget about you because they can't climb, and yeah, it's true. So far, not a single enemy has chased me once I leave the ground floor. You're basically invincible as soon as you add some elevation between you and and your enemy. It's actually pathetic that Ubisoft made the game like this and didn't think to give enemy types that, I don't know, can pursue you. Maybe they get added later on. I hope so anyways. Because so far, the whole game just feels very milquetoast, mid. You've played this game before. Everything I just explained, even if you haven't played it, you're going, yep, it sounds like he's playing an Assassin's Creed game, and you're right. There's just not a single moment in this game so far that sticks out to me as a big oh wow moment.
I said this in my previous videos. Instead of them figuring out ways to make their game more innovative, because there's things that they could do to push it further, instead they put their development time into gay romances that are terribly written, that do not provide any value to the game, into creating meditation mini games. I mean, it's just bad. This game sucks. And they didn't do anything to actually improve on the game's DNA and make it more engaging.
Moment, and it frustrates me so much because Shadows and Assassin's Creed in general, it should be capable of better than this, but this series is honestly just being held back by Ubisoft as a publisher, if I'm being honest. Because Ghost of Tsushima proves that other studios and companies can take what pretty much is Assassin's Creed's formula and just make it better and more involving when the bones of Assassin's Creed are not just in the hands of Ubisoft. And after having played Shadows, it's almost as if there's nothing new here to really say about it. It's just like the other ones, but it's also somehow worse. Odyssey and Origins, in my opinion, are far superior than this game in almost every single way. Shadows doesn't even have the best rendition of Japan that we've seen in games recently either, especially if I then compare Shadows to Rise of the Ronin even. That's another open world Japanese game that came out recently, and Shadows just fits.
I never looked at that game. People said it was really good, but I never gave it any time. Maybe I should check it out.
Even when compared to that, man. Ronin and Ghost have such better combat systems and exploration than Shadows, it's not even funny. They're not even in the same category. How Ubisoft had 5 years of dev time extra beyond Ghost and landed with this, it's honestly puzzling to me. I know some are saying in the reviews that Naoe is a great character, maybe she is later on, but so far I don't really see it.
No, she's
fine
not.
For what she is, but there's nothing really visually striking or interesting about
Propaganda.
her. Her design too is
Jeez,
just so...
Lee, if this game was made by some freaking far right wingers, holy effing crap, they would be trashing on Naoe, trashing on Yasuke. They'd be trashing on this game. This is ridiculous. Goodness, the shilling is unreal. These people, they make me freaking sick. Oh.
And I know you're probably asking, well, what about not Nasuke? Let's say Yasuke. But besides that opening mission as him, I haven't been able to play as him again yet. I've been running around the world just doing typical map marker things as Naoe. But from what I've played of Yasuke, he's just like a poor man's Ghost of Tsushima, or I guess Rise of the Ronin character, or any other game where you use a katana or sword to fight with. There's just simply nothing about this game so far that stands out to me when it comes to what I've played before within this genre. And it genuinely just feels like Ubisoft has been completely left behind when it comes to making open world story-driven RPG games. I can't believe that we are now 10 years removed from Witcher 3, which Ubisoft has admitted was the core inspiration for the RPG era of Assassin's Creed games. And yet they still can't seem to match it in any way, like not even the combat even. What are we doing? Look, I'm giving the game an honest try. I haven't ran into any gay or non-binary romances yet. I'm probably too early on for that. But from what I've played, this game is just a piece of bread, like any other piece of bread that is just fine. It's the kind of game that you will play while listening to like a YouTube video or a podcast, or just put some music on while you just sort of zone out. You know, the kind of game where you stop using your brain and just clear the map little by little to just sort of veg out. We've all been there, I wager. But if you're looking for some big, epic, grand adventure that will test you and change how you see the series or this formula of games, sorry, but that's not here. It's just mid, guys. And it doesn't help when Ubisoft employees have said this also from fandom too. Alleged Ubisoft employee says if Assassin's Creed Shadows sells moderately well, we're in real trouble. This Ubisoft employee who said this was sourced by French website BFMTV. It's the same website that originally broke that story about Ubisoft suing people who will harass their devs or whatever. Anyway, this is what this employee said according to them. If the game does moderately well, we're in real trouble. The employee added, if Shadows sells very well, we'll be able to start breathing a sigh of relief. The employee would go on to provide more color. Already, if it sells like Odyssey, which is the second best-selling game of all time for Ubisoft, we'll be happy. Then Mark Alexis Cody, the franchise producer of Assassin's Creed, was also shown to have said this in the past with how he thinks Shadows needs to perform to meet expectations. When you look at who succeeds, at least in the AAA...
Man, that's so crazy. Like, ninjas. Oh, man. God, the people working for them are just not the same people anymore. Like, Assassin's Creed 3 had interesting characters, you know? A lot of them were founding father type of dudes, but like the writers were just different back then. And like that game was still propaganda in its own ways, but like it was still decent writing despite the propaganda. And then, you know, Black Flag, it had crappy character. Well, it was just meh. It was very whelming. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was just there. And like, when I played Black Flag, I was praying for the story to get good all throughout my time playing it. I was just like, please, just make this good. And it just didn't happen. It just continued being average. But it's like, okay, whatever. The game was fun. The game was good. So it's like, okay. And like, for the most part, I liked the characters. It's weird because Assassin's Creed Odyssey's story actually kind of hit me a little bit by the end. It's something I don't really think was that great, but it's like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And it did, like, after finishing the DLCs, the story really hit me then. Oh man. They actually did an okay job with the story for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And there's things I have to say that I hate about that game, but for the most part, they did a good job with it. And it, ultimately it covers existentialism, and that just, like, it really hit me deep, because it's like, it does a really great job with the story covering a man's life. You starting from the bottom of the world, working your way up to the top, meeting Julius Caesar, right? Cleopatra, as I remember, meeting them, speaking to them, working for them, and then everyone dies, and then everything, Athens and Greece, it's all falling apart, and then just all these things are happening around you, and it develops at the right pace throughout the story that the themes are believable. And then we get into the DLC where you become a father. Again, there's gay aspects of this because you can play as a male or a female. But when you're playing as a man, you're a father, your son and your wife, they die, which is pretty tragic. The emotional delivery is actually really well done. Dang. And then we get to the final DLC, and you meet the main character, and he's dead. He exists now in the Animus. And it's just like, holy crap. Like, it's like looking back on your entire life kind of a moment playing through that game. It's like, I don't like saying all that. I feel like it's a little bit too self-aware, but it's, it's true. And it was a story overall, playing throughout the entire story. It hit me pretty hard when I was done with it. Like, it left a scar, that kind of thing. It actually left an impact on me, and I think that was the last good story they made. Valhalla, nah. Origins, nah. But it's like there was just aspects to which they actually, if you play as a man in Odyssey, I think that story is actually pretty alright. For the most part. And by the way, the game was made for you to play as the man, not as the woman. It's so retarded. Man, I freaking hate shills. I hate them so much. But people, they sat there and they were like, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Playing as a man or a woman. But, again, these freaking retards. Moving on. So, it's just like, it really hit me deep playing through that game. And it wasn't like it was super amazing, but it's like it did leave an impact. And so they did something that was good. But yeah, ever since then, it's just, I mean, seriously, these games, they have really been decreasing in quality as time goes on. It's really sad. I mean, there was a time where people really looked forward to Assassin's Creed. And that's just not the case anymore. It's really sad.
Space, so what I'm going to say applies to like mostly premium games, more traditional kind of AAA games. You have 10 games.
And everybody too. We always thought that whenever they actually get into Japan, these games are going to get interesting. The story's going to be cool. Man, it's just writers are not like what they used to be. There's no eloquence. There's no sophistication. They're not very smart. They're not very intelligent anymore. I mean, it used to be that you could tell that these writers, they definitely read up on how people of the time period, how they thought and the world that they lived in and what their culture was like. And like, it's not about being autistic, but it's just like having an idea of it. And then you make your interpretation on the idea of it. That's what makes creativity cool. It's taking the known and making it abstract. It would have been so cool to just, I don't care if it was made by a company that was Japanese or not. It would just be cool to have Ubisoft, when they were hiring the proper writers at one point in time, it would have been cool if those guys were just like, okay, let me read up on a little bit of Japanese history and then let me just come up with something. And that would have been cool. It doesn't need to be accurate. Nobody cares about that autistic nonsense. But what matters is like, you need to be authentic. You need to be authentic. And the premise is completely inauthentic. I mean, this game does not feel like a Japanese game. It feels like a weird, it's like a skinwalker of a game. There's something so lifeless to this game. It's really weird.
In any given year that will sell about 10 million copies. The reason I'm quoting the 10 million copies kind of
But the fact that there are female samurai and female shinobi, I mean, that is just the freaking, I mean, that is the dagger in the wound right there. It destroys the immersion of this game and the characters. I mean, Yasuke too, but you know, it's just like, it should just be men, and that's it.
Mark is from what I've seen and how I've seen our costs and the cost of competitors and everybody. Everything leaks in our industry, so you have privileged information on where the competition is going, but mostly I estimate that 10 million copies, give or take 2 million copies, is mostly what you need to break even, but you have only 10 games that breach that every year. Out of those 10, you'll have probably 3 sports games, you'll have 4 games of established franchises, and probably 2 or 3 games that are surprise hits coming from nowhere. But that leaves very, very little room and wiggle room for success, so I'm trying to steer the Assassin's Creed franchise through that. One of those games, by the way, that has done this already is Monster Hunter Wilds. And I can see that Mark Alexis Cody is trying to steer this game in a direction how to be successful, but the reality is that the game has already left the top 10 global bestsellers list on Steam and it just came out. And to be frank with you, Shadows will be lucky if it even breaks even for Ubisoft, but from what I've played of this game, it will just go down in history as one of the games of all time. People definitely worked on it, art was made, designers designed things, but it all just feels so constrained and by committee of what Ubisoft wants their games to be. What Ubisoft needed right now wasn't just a win,
we need to go back to bigots making games. I freaking had it. It's so like, we need to go back to the 2000s era of racism. We need to go back to people. I mean, like someone should have said chink somewhere in this game. This is so unacceptable, just how painfully inoffensive this game is. And I miss old American racism, just being inconsiderate of other people, other cultures, and just saying, screw it, who cares? Like, I miss that mentality because it was so much more fun back then when everything was bigoted and everything was, oh my gosh, my freaking pearls, I'm clutching them because I'm so offended right now. And like, I need to play in a game and the characters just say all throughout the game that Indian people stink and they smell. I need something to be offensive. Everything is so sanitized nowadays. It's because everything's being made for globalism, a made for everyone audience. Screw that.
Needed a truly transformative piece of art that could elevate them and show the industry and the players that they are here to stay.
There used to be a time where games were M for mature because it was mature. Nowadays, the games coming out, there's nothing mature about them. It's just cringe. It should be C for cringe. That should be the rating on the freaking disc because nothing else is going to happen. You're going to get gay romance. You're going to get lesbian romance. You're going to get all this freaking nonsense that nobody wants to see. C for cringe. That's everything now.
But instead what we got was just another game, like the rest of them, that does all the things you've already experienced and doesn't really offer anything new to justify itself to keep existing the way it is. And if you truly want an open-world action game that is set in Japan, go play Ghost of Tsushima or Rise of the Ronin. In my opinion, they're both far superior games and they're also cheaper to buy now than Shadows right now anyways. Shadows is not the worst game I've ever played. Granted, there's still plenty of time for that to change for me, but from what I've played, it's just another game that you will maybe play in the future when it's deep on sale, and even then you'll think that you still spent too much for it. Ubisoft needs to just let go of its tired, out-of-date design structure, but frankly, with how they're going as a company, I don't really see them existing as they are right now if this is what they think will save them. Ultimately, Tencent or whoever else will likely just own them before long. They could have gone out with a bang.
The environmental designers, though, they do a really good job.
But instead, they're kind of just going out with the wet fart. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I'll have more in the future as there's still plenty more to cover on this game, but for now, this is enough. Thanks for being here. Subscribe. I'll have more revelations and such in the future. I'll probably do a non-Assassin's Creed video next, but we'll circle back to this dumpster fire before long, and I'll see you again.
Nice. Well, guys, that's it here. Yeah, I'm disappointed with the direction that Assassin's Creed has been going in. I'm not happy about it, but you know, this is a company that's now dead, without a doubt. And it's just depressing to see what's happened to them. But anyway, that is enough here. And we will be back later.